When we talk about drowning and waters and riverways, there's a little bit of a language that we actually speak to. And drowning prevention sort of sits down as a multidiscipline that builds resilience and awareness in a community that identifies risk and vulnerability. Additionally to that, we've got the drowning risk. So what is a drowning risk? And it's essentially the consequences around what happens when you enter a waterway and the potential liability or opportunity that actually may occur. We also talk about hazards and exposure. So a hazard being whether it's environment driven or manufactured, the exposure, so the frequency of things like major rainstorms, weather events, the saturation, so how much water is coming down a river when we're talking riverways, and things like just the diversity of what the occurrences can be. We also talk about drowning vulnerability. So what are the vulnerabilities within a community? Every community is very different. So you might have an ageing community, you might have a diverse community, you might have a youth community, you might have a community that is reliant on other people or services. So the vulnerability in which we all live is something that we also need to consider. So drowning resilience is about adapting processes and the ability as a community to adopt a process to assist your entire community, your fellow neighbour, your friend, your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncles, your mum, your dads, in preventing any drowning occurrences. When we talk drowning, unfortunately, when it comes to water-based injuries or issues, the problem we face is the collection of data that we've got. So the data, the drowning pyramid, which it's called, is actually broken into 4 categories. Fatal drownings is very, very evident. So you know when somebody's passed away due to drowning episode. So that's data that we can easily collect. Non-fatal drownings that are reported. So they're incidences where a person is nearly drowned. They've been attended to by paramedics or they've sought assistance from lifesavers. They've actually had a medical result, and therefore that data has also been captured. Where we fall into a little bit of a hole is the non-fatal drownings not reported. So that is when there was a scenario spoken about just before where a couple of ladies fell into the water and managed to pull themselves out. They had a bit of a laugh and chuckle and moved on. Well, that's exactly what the non-fatal drowning data that we don't actually get to capture, because that's an event that's occurred. Somebody has potentially been at high risk, coughed, spluttered, even had been sick, or there's been some form of medical issue. But they've been okay and they've sort of dusted themselves off and moved on. And then you've got near misses. So that near misses sort of falls around where a person might be walking close to the water's edge and you have a crumbling rock face, or you trip over the dog's stick or something and you land face first in the water. And again, you dust yourself off and you move on. They're the information that we don't get. So a lot of our information is really based around any fatalities and non-fatal drownings. So some statistics. So what's occurred in the last 5 years? So what we know is 53%, 55%, there's been an increase in fatal drownings in the last 5 years. That's quite a significant increase. We found quite significantly on the tail end as we're coming out of that dreaded COVID period. A lot of people decided that they wanted to get out and about without having swimming lessons or without having that connectivity with water, and we found a lot of increases occurring. We also found 82% of non-fatal incidences increased. So more and more people are getting into the water, more and more people are getting themselves into trouble. Fatal drowning is pretty much a 50-50 split when it comes to inland waterways and coastal environments. The reason for that being is a lot of drownings tend to feel as though a lot of people sort of think that a lot of drownings happen on the beach, on the coast, in the waves, in the treacherous water. It's actually not the case. A lot of inland waterways, which is not necessarily as what you see in the media, you do see a lot of beach access stuff. So it's very important, especially in this community, that inland waterways is very much taken into consideration. 75% of males is likely to drown. The age bracket in which is at most at risk is 65 plus. So the 65 plus age bracket is due to a lot of farming, especially in the inland waterways, where they might have dams or waterways on their actual properties. Again, feeding the cows, getting them to drink, walking closer to the dam, tripping over, getting stuck in the mud, getting caught, can cause significant trauma. Also due to the cold population, so the cultural and linguistical diversity, sort of community groups that present, they're twice as likely to be involved in a drowning incident, a fatal drowning incident. Non-fatal drowning, so coastal locations in this instance is actually what's more significant. And the reason for the non-fatal drownings being more coastal is that there's generally more population at a beach. So if somebody does get into trouble, the likelihood is there's somebody there to assist is probably more, it's a numbers game, it's more likely that somebody's going to help to pluck you out. We've also got other lifesavers, lifeguards, patrol beaches. So that doesn't stop things from happening. Again, 62% of males is more than likely to be occurrence in non-fatal drownings. And also too, which is interesting here, the demographic most at risk is the 0 to 14-year-olds. Now the reason for that is these things. The amount of parents, carers, sit on their phones, yeah, you're right, you go play, that's fine, and not watch their child, or wherever they're there to the beach with, is atrocious. As I mentioned before, I'm president of Lifesaving Club. The amount of missing children that we get reported every single weekend is atrocious. And it all accounts to people sitting there on their phones, or reading a book, or not watching their child as the child goes into the water, or goes on the water and just goes for a wander. Now, the good thing is we find 99% of those, but it just goes to show you that it's very important that if you're at the beach, leave your phone in the car, leave it at home, make sure that you're actually watching. A few changes in interactions. So climate change, we've seen a lot of increased rain events. We've got small bursts of hot weather. We've had economic changes, so people, families increase mortgages, increase cost of living. So some of the first things to go are things like swimming lessons. Changes in people, so we've had an increase in populations, cultural diversities, so all of the skill sets around those people that are coming to Australia and enjoying what we know and love. And we've also got changes in policies, so things like mandating fences and barricades around swimming pools. So there's some big changes in that space. So who's responsible to prevent drowning? And this is a perfect example of it takes a community to raise a child or a person. So everybody is essentially responsible when it comes to drowning. So community first and foremost, because the community knows their environment better than anybody. They know what the waterways are like, and they know where the dangers and the risks lie. Industry, so Lifesaving Victoria is a big part of industry. The data collection that we hold is extremely significant. And we use that data to go and work with local councils, state governments to try and build better, robust approaches to water safety. And of course, government. So without a lot of these strategies, the government who provide grant funding and a lot of other varying opportunities play a huge part as well. So the state government, coordinated through Emergency Management Victoria, created the Victoria Water Safety Strategy and the Water Safety Action Plan. So these are documents that we, as Lifesaving Victoria and the industry experts, we guide and advise. So this is what we're working towards, is a better, safe water management environment. So the Victorian Water Safety Strategy is broken into 3 contexts. So community, again, is a key focus of what the strategy is about. It's about working with community and building resilience, building opportunity. The local context also includes things like local government, local community leaders, and of course our third is agencies and local government, so supporting emergency services, Lifesaving Victoria and state federal governments. All play a key role. Well, our first factor one is around the disregard of the hazard. So things like on-site, and so education. So education plays a big role in communities and what the waterways are doing. So and that includes things like signage, it includes life-saving, it includes swimming lessons, it includes even just the mums and dads standing by the side of the river and guiding there and providing guidance to a child or another person. It doesn't necessarily have to be a child, because the amount of adults that aren't great swimmers is not too far off the amount of children either. Factor 2 is around unrestricted use. So that's why pool fencing became mandatory in Victoria. You've also got signage and active management and regulations around what you can do around swimming pools or waterways. Factor 3 includes supervision. So areas of mass gathering or areas where water is being managed, about having lifeguarding services, trained observers, and of course parent supervisors. Put the phones down, put the books down. And of course our last factor 4 is around being able to cope. So what happens if something goes wrong? Knowing your skills and ability to be able to support what that might look like. And that could be the use of flotation devices. It could be public rescue equipment, community aids, it could be 000s. How do you actually, if something does go wrong, how are you going to manage it? From here, what are our next steps? So how does the community become part of the solution? What strengths do you have as a valued member of the community to support what that looks like? And in saying that as well, looking at the strengths is one thing, but what about the challenges? So being able to evaluate your own ability to swim, your own ability to understand what a waterway does. So that then provides you what restrictions you may or may not have. And can you educate yourself? Can you improve your ability and reduce what those restrictions look like? What does success look like? So within a community, what does success look like for safe waterways? So our call to action, keep the conversations going. That's the best thing anybody can do within a community. Continue to talk about what the problem might be. That engages and it provides additional learning. Understanding the diversity of risk. So it's a waterway is not just a danger because someone's going to drown because they can't swim. As we've learned tonight through multiple agencies here, the diversity of risk can be logs, trees, rocks, tripping, falling. It could be a number of different reasons. Weather conditions, rainfalls. And there's also industry experts out there to assist. So Lifesaving Victoria has a research team. Lifesaving Victoria has got education teams, public education teams, community education teams. We've got consultants, we've got a number of outreaches that we can actually support in communities when it comes to waterways.